Out of all the seasons in the history of the NASCAR Cup Series, the 2023 season has certainly been one of them. Let's take a look at what has happened so far in this halfway point checkup of the Cup Series. If there's anybody that hasn't been having a very good 75th anniversary season, it's been NASCAR themselves. The sanctioning body has been through it this year. Firstly, there was a major decline in TV ratings for weeks on end, which turned out to be due to Chase Elliott missing several races. There's the National Motorsports Appeal Panel completely destroying any kind of authority NASCAR may have had in their garage, prompting NASCAR to make sweeping changes to the rules of the appeals panel mid-season, and once again, a plethora of bad officiating decisions. Oh, and that's not to mention, they still haven't reached an agreement for a TV contract or in money sharing with the teams, with the hang-up now being permanent charters. It's certainly been a pretty rocky road so far for them. Let's see if any of the teams have been faring any better. At this point, I just want to see what kind of afflictions can happen to Hendrick Motorsports this year, because they are making a speed run of becoming the Job of NASCAR teams this season. It started off well enough. All four teams looked to be pretty good. And then Chase Elliott broke his leg snowboarding right before the Las Vegas weekend. Josh Berry would fill in his stead and has done a pretty solid job at it. However, the following week after Elliott's injury, NASCAR confiscated every single louver off of the Hendrick Motorsports cars. They found that those louvers were modified, and the team was hit with a massive L2 penalty, $100,000 fines totaling a $400,000 fine to the entire team, and every team's crew chief being suspended, not to mention 100 driver and owner's points deductions. Hendrick Motorsports naturally appealed this penalty, and in one of the weirdest twists ever, the appeals panel appeared to have agreed with NASCAR that they violated the rules. However, they overturned the point penalty for some reason. NASCAR was understandably upset at this whole ordeal, so they slapped on some very ticky-tacky soft penalties on two of the Hendrick Motorsports cars a week later. Then, as it seems like that was all in the past, Alex Bowman is now the one to get hurt, with Josh Berry filling in his car. I swear, it seems like Josh Berry is going to run a full season at this rate in every single Hendrick Motorsports cars. Just watch, if something weird happens to Larson or Byron in the coming weeks, then this whole team is just cursed. Speaking of Larson and Byron, they seem to be two of the best cars week in and week out in the Cup Series so far. Byron leads the entire series with 3 victories, and Larson has a pair himself. However, Larson's been checkers or wreckers this year, as he really should have like 5 wins already, but seems like he keeps getting taken out of races, either by bad luck with some overtimes, or by just straight up wrecking out of them. As for Elliott and Bowman, their paths to the playoffs are going to be most likely to have to win. Pointing their way in seems to be, is not an impossible task, but it's going to be very difficult for them. And if that's not enough, Rick Hendrick is now pissed at Ross Chastain, just like everybody else in the garage is. Oh, you think the drama's gonna slow down? Oh, it's just beginning. It must feel good to drive a Chevy. Chevrolet has clearly been the best manufacturer so far this season, and that was shown with their speed early on in the year especially. Daniel Suarez started the year with 3 straight top 10 finishes, and then his team has promptly fell off a cliff afterwards. Whether it be by just having not that great of speed or just terrible luck, this team has been having a struggle so far. His teammate, on the other hand, hasn't been struggling. In fact, he's the points leader, even though he hasn't won a race yet, and is continuing to make enemies week in and week out. Recently, this has manifested with a fight with Noah Gragson, if you can even call it that, and whatever the heck that Darlington restart was. The drama surrounding Ross Chastain is a weekly occurrence at this point, and I can't wait to see where it goes next. RCR seems to be having a pretty decent season. Austin Dillon looked like he had some speed early in the year, but has since faded back to, well, where Austin Dillon usually runs, mid-pack. Although his team was hit with an L1 penalty, which has put them behind the 8 ball. His new teammate Kyle Busch has been having a pretty good start so far in his RCR tenure. The first few weeks of the season, this 8 team looked to be one of the best in the garage. He had a chance to win in the first 4 events that he was entered in this year. The first 3 didn't work out.
Oh, Kyle Busch in the wall.
but the fourth one at Auto Club is where things finally worked out. Busch was able to get the lead and then ran and hide to get the win. Although since that win, the team has definitely cooled down. They've had some good finishes here or there, and even got another win at Talladega. However, there's been plenty of bad races by this team so far. If they can clean up their mistakes, specifically Busch on pit road, then this team is definitely a championship contender. The last Chevy team that has actually been having a really good season is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and JTG Doherty Racing. Their season was made when he won the Daytona 500 this year. But after that Daytona victory, Stenhouse has been having a Michael McDowell 2021 type season so far. They just find ways to finish inside the top 15 most weeks. He's still in a position to make the playoffs off of points, even if he didn't have the win at Daytona. I'd say this is easily the best year Stenhouse has had at JTG, and quite honestly, it's the first year that JTG can say that they've had a really good season since, 2014? It's good to see. Let's check in on the Toyotas. At the top of the food chain lies Christopher Bell, picking up right where he left off after the end of last season. Him and that 20 bunch are clearly the best Toyota team week in and week out, even though he only has one win at Bristol Dirt so far. His veteran teammates at JGR have also been having solid seasons. Martin Truex Jr. was able to break his winless streak by getting a victory at Dover. Denny Hamlin was pretty quiet at the start of this season, outside of some drama at Phoenix with Ross Chastain. However, he's been able to turn things around and is starting to get hot right now. He was able to get the win at Kansas, although it wasn't without a little bit of controversy. Classic Hamlin. Tyler Reddick is the other Toyota to get to victory lane this season. After a really slow start, the 45 bunch have been able to pick things back up, getting 3 straight top 5s, culminating with a win at COTA. They've been kind of up and down since that victory, but it's not too far off from where Kurt Busch was in that car last year, so I'd say it's been a pretty solid year for them. Reddick's teammate, Bubba Wallace, has had, the typical start of a season for this team. Just kinda hanging out in the back. This is the 3rd year in a row this has happened, so I think we can safely say that this is a trend with this 23 bunch. They just can't seem to get out of their own way, whether it be a pit crew mistake, a Bubba mistake, or just rotten luck. Nonetheless, it looks like this 23 team are turning things around, having a streak of solid finishes coming into the All-Star race break. If they can keep it up, then they should be the playoff contender that I predicted them to be. As for the new rookie at Toyota, Ty Gibbs has been having a quiet season, and that's a good thing. He needed to just keep his head down and grind out results, and that's exactly what he's done. They haven't been flashy at all, but they're results nonetheless, and he's hanging around that playoff bubble area. So far, I'd say this has been a successful rookie campaign for the young Gibbs. The manufacturer that's clearly lagging behind is Ford. There's only been one Ford team to reach victory lane this season, and that's been Joey Logano with a win at Atlanta. Well, he is the defending champion, but he's been having the season I expected him to have. He's got a win, but really hasn't done much since then. The typical odd number season for Joey Logano. Ryan Blaney has not been the championship contender that he was last season. He's still alright, and has actually been climbing up in the point standings recently, but he's still not competing for those wins, and that's been really disappointing to see. As for Austin Cindric, he is completely irrelevant. It seems like the only time I've seen him on TV is when he's getting lapped. That's not good at all. I could say that probably the best Ford team from top to bottom this year is RFK. Brad Keselowski has been having a resurgent season. His stats are already on par for what they were for the entirety of last season, and they should honestly be better. There have been several races where the 6 team has had top 10, top 5 speed and haven't gotten the result to show for it. He should be able to get a win this year with the speed that he's shown.
Oh, God, so far away. It's like my pelvis is juggling water balloons. Oh, God, and the balloons are filled with piss, and the piss is in my penis.
A few moments later.
As for Chris Buescher, it's not been flashy, which is typical for Chris Buescher, but he is in a playoff spot, so I'd say it's been a successful season so far for him. What in the world is going on at SHR? I don't think Kevin Harvick needs back surgery at the end of this year. I think he needs total spinal reconfiguration surgery. He has been carrying this trash organization on his back for a decade. And I mean it when I say this organization is trash. These cars are just terrible week in and week out. There's been like 4 or 5 instances where Chase Briscoe shows up to the track and he has a 30th place car. What? Did they just grab a Rick Ware racing car chassis for him? He was able to get a streak of top 5 finishes, which was able to get him into a playoff spot, but with the speed this team has shown most weeks, I doubt he's going to be able to stay up there. As for Eric Almirola, completely irrelevant. Ryan Preece, the only time I've seen him is when he's calling people hacks at the end of COTA and that run-in with Kyle Larson at Bristol Dirt. This organization is just pathetic. They are in deep, deep trouble once Harvick retires at the end of this year. Believe that. Well, I might as well talk about the rest of the Fords. Front Row Motorsports has been having an okay year. Michael McDowell hasn't had the speed or results that he's shown the past couple of seasons, but you know, it's still Michael McDowell. He's still having some solid results most weeks, so I'd say that's kind of typical for what we expect of this 34 team at this point. As for Todd Gilliland, he's actually been having a great season so far. There was a streak where he went like a good month finishing inside the top 15. That's fantastic for him in this 38 team. A 38 team that was one of the worst week in and week out for years before Gilliland stepped in. So it makes perfect sense to just kick him off to the curb right before the start of the season so Zane Smith can get some seat time. Geez, thanks Front Row. Great driver management there. Hopefully Gilliland is able to find himself a better ride than Front Row. I think he's shown that he deserves that opportunity. As for Harrison Burton, it's been more of the same from last year. Just completely irrelevant.
All right, Charles, who you got?
Yeah. He's either playing in China or Japan.
China or Japan. We need to
That's
be
not the name of the
more
team.
specific.
Guangdong Tigers. Ni hao! Ni hao! Ni hao!
And Cody Ware, what's there to talk about Cody Ware? It's Cody Ware and Rick Ware Racing. I'm sure there's nothing significant that's happened with him and this team.
Hey, Mac. What are you in for?
Spire Motorsports has been a tale of 2 cars. In one car, you have the 77 with Ty Dillon. They are trash. Like, you need to play for the Guangdong Tigers level trash.
Guangdong Tigers. Ni hao!
And then there's Corey LaJoie, who has been having a great season. I said in my previous video that I felt like his career has been stalling out. Well, boy, they've proved me wrong this year. They're finally grabbing the results and the finishes that they believed that they would when they made this partnership back a few years ago. There was a stretch there where LaJoie was legit in the playoff picture off of points. While obviously he's since fallen back because the Spire 7 car is still not that good, it's definitely been better than where it has been the past few years, and that is great to see. As for Kaulig Racing, I've just been tremendously disappointed with them. Not so much in Justin Haley. He's running about where he was last season, and that's kind of where I expected him to be. But AJ Allmendinger has just been completely irrelevant. When was the only race that you can remember his name being brought up? COTA? That was it. Most weeks he's running in like the 20s. I didn't expect him to be no championship contender, but I thought he would be around that playoff bubble. But no, he's nowhere close to it. I still think he pulls out a win at a road course at some point this year, but I was expecting him to run better at the ovals with Kaulig Racing this year, but it's just not happening right now. What in the world is going on at Legacy Motor Club? This team is just garbage right now. I think it's pretty clear that Jimmy Johnson did kind of a corporate takeover of this team last season, completely changing the team's name, and it changed the dynamics, but they've just fallen off a cliff. Eric Jones had a legit playoff contending car last year. Now he's barely able to finish inside the top 20. Like, what is going on? Noah Gragson, I didn't expect him to set the world on fire, but he's running about on par where Ty Dillon was. Yes, Ty Dillon, the guy fielding calls from the Shanghai Sharks. That Ty Dillon, and Noah Gregson's driving about on par with him. Wow. And make no mistake, while these cars had almost the same paint scheme every single week, these cars are not sponsored. Allegiant and Sunseeker Resorts are Maury Gallagher businesses. It's very similar to how Long John Silver's and Taco Bell were on front row cars for a long time there before they got solid funding, because Bob Jenkins was a franchise owner of those restaurants. Or BK Racing and their Burger King sponsorship. That wasn't a sponsorship at all. It's like that at Legacy Motor Club. Last year at the dirt race, they had a deal with Food City with Tide and Gain on their cars. You know, nice little theming for the dirt race. Haha, very funny. This year, those were on the Kaulig cars. And that was revealed around the same time that one of their business directors got fired. What is going on? It's just disappointing to see this team fall off like this. And I don't really know what the fix is, but apparently they do. They are switching to Toyota next season. Hopefully that works out for them, but let's look at the track record of teams that have affiliated themselves with Toyota.
Bruh.
Well, good luck with that, Jimmy. So far in the playoff standings, there are 9 drivers that have locked themselves in with wins. Now, after last year, we can't be too confident with just one win. However, I don't see us going to 16 winners again like we did last year, but it's certainly possible. William Byron with 3 wins is clearly in, and Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson have also locked themselves in with a pair of wins as well. They are guaranteed in the playoffs. Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Tyler Reddick, Joey Logano, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. are all the drivers with 1 win, and they should be in the playoffs. But, you know, as last year showed, you can never be too sure. But they at least have the insurance with the 1 victory. Ross Chastain is the regular season points leader, which automatically guarantees him a spot in as long as he stays the regular season points leader. However, considering how many people are mad at him, I doubt that that's going to last too much longer. Kevin Harvick, Ryan Blaney, and Brad Keselowski are all in pretty good spots on points so far. But, like I've been saying, a win would be a whole lot better for them to ensure that they can make the playoffs. But so far, so good. They are top 10 speed week in and week out, and that should bode well into getting at least 1 win at some point. Chris Buescher and Bubba Wallace are pretty okay in points. However, they've not been flashy at all this season, and they could easily fall out of this spot depending if some winners from below the cut line pop up. Right now, Chase Briscoe, Alex Bowman, Daniel Suarez, and Ty Gibbs hover around that playoff bubble area. I could see Bowman and Suarez, if they turn things around, can point their way in. As for Briscoe and Gibbs, I'm not too confident that they'll be able to find their way into the playoffs outside of getting a miracle win somewhere. As for the rest of the field, they're kind of the irrelevance. Outside of Chase Elliott, like I said, it's not impossible for him to point his way into the playoffs. I just don't think it's feasible. So he'll be looking for a win in the second half of the regular season. The rest of the back half of the field, their only way of making the playoffs at this point should be a victory. And outside of a few of them, I don't really see that happening for these guys unless if some crazy nonsense happens at Daytona. So with all that said, I'll see you once the playoffs begin in September.
Hey, Ross Chastain, it's Boyer and the boys up in the booth. You got us?
Oh, no, don't talk to me.